All right, we got big news. We're going to talk about the double standard and also big ONVO launch event tomorrow. What are they launching? All right, there's going to be a press release, a launch event. You'd think that 3 months since unveiling the car, that they would be launching the car finally, but that's not the case. The stores are opening very soon, September 1st. We talked about that, but they're not actually launching the car in full. They're just launching the camping features for the car. And they're going to be discussing the camping features and that kind of stuff, tell you what it's all about, and maybe some other things about the car. Um, you know, I guess it's very good that you get these kind of individualized launch events, individualized little press tidbits that really tell you everything about the car. However, some people just want to get the car right now, and some people are impatient, and we've talked about that in a previous video, so we're not going to elaborate too much on that. So it is what it is. They're launching camping features. Camping is going to be very important because like the seats, they can lie down and become a full bed. It's going to be flush with the second row, and there's going to be a lot of other camping features, um, like outputting power and all sorts of cool stuff. And of course, hopefully they're going to talk about the freezer, which everybody wants. All right, the freezer in the car, absolutely amazing. That's going to be one of the big reasons to buy this car, actually. And I'm sure a lot of NIO owners will also be very jealous of that. We'd also want a freezer in our car, but I'm not sure if it's going to be compatible with NIO vehicles. That's going to be a big kicker. You know, if they launch that freezer and it's not compatible with NIO vehicles, NIO owners are going to be like, no, why? That car is cheaper than our car, but we don't have that feature. But yeah, okay. So look out for tomorrow. There's gonna be some good news that drops tomorrow. Now let's talk about double standard. So we know that recently, the EU, even Canada as well, applied massive tariffs. Canada 100% tariffs on EVs made in China, Chinese EVs basically that are going to be sold there, 100% tariffs. But Tesla is actually asking Canada to reduce the tariffs for Tesla because Tesla is an American company. And similar for the EU, and the EU actually capitulated. Chinese-made Model 3s, all right, are going to have reduced tariffs in the EU. Whereas the other EV companies, NIO, etc., they don't have reduced tariffs. They pay the full tariff, which is absolutely nuts. That's the double standard. Like, so Chinese EVs are somehow stealing jobs, right? Because they're being produced here in China. But Tesla Model 3 being produced here in China, are they not stealing jobs from the EU? How come they get less tariff, right? That's the crazy double standard. And even in Canada, I mean, like, I'm sure they can just ship some Model 3s from the Gigafactory in the US. I mean, US is closer to Canada than China is to Canada. How come Tesla has to ask for reduced tariffs on Chinese-made Model 3s? It just makes these tariffs sound like a super hypocritical tariff, right? They're only doing it because it's China, because they hate China, because China is an ally to Russia, and then there's that war going on, and China is not really like a friend. They're more like a foe, and all this bullshit, man. So I'm gonna make a wild prediction. All right, so this wild prediction may come true or may not come true, but I think after the election, let's say hypothetically Trump wins, all right, hypothetically. I know some of you guys might support the other side or whatever, but let's say hypothetically Trump wins and then he somehow ends the war in Ukraine. Let's just say the priority is the war ending, all right, whether it's giving up territory or some sort of peace deal or whatever. That would really help curb the strenuous relationship between China and the West, all right? And the Ukraine war ending, that would be a huge bullish thing for Chinese stocks and Chinese EV companies. in general. And that would perhaps, like convince them to remove these tariffs and maybe convince investors to hop back on board on NIO stock. And the way you got to think about it is, this war ending, if it ends, that's definitely going to be very, very good for Chinese equities in general. And they could perhaps even open the door for China's EV companies like NIO to expand in the US and expand in Canada. Whereas right now with 100% tariffs, it just doesn't make sense, right? It just does not make sense. And, you're saying the argument is that China's stealing jobs from Americans and stuff. I mean, what about the iPhone, man? Come on. The iPhone's made in China. The iPhone's made in India. Why doesn't Apple get sanctioned, huh? What's going on with that? Why don't they have tariffs on Apple, right? How crazy is that? Well, because Apple's an American company, right? And imagine if China retaliated with these sanctions, right? You're going to have 100% tariffs in the U.S. Well, what if, and reduce tariffs for Tesla in the EU, whereas everybody else has high tariffs. Imagine if Tesla came out with a tariff on vehicles, the government came out with a tariff on Tesla here in China. That's also going to have the same effect. All right, it's going to be extremely bullish because now Teslas are going to be more expensive, right? Just like how in the EU, new vehicles might become more expensive in the future, and more people will be inclined to buy a Tesla because Teslas are cheaper, and they made Chinese EVs more expensive. Well, here in China, they should also make the American EVs, Teslas, more expensive. They do that, more people gravitate towards Chinese EVs. That's going to make it fair, right? It's sort of like when they had that trade war dispute. They're going to do tariffs on these batch of shipments, and then China's going to do retaliatory tariffs, and it was this back and forth between China and Trump. I mean, that's happening, but it's one-sided. China's not retaliating. China absolutely should retaliate and place some tariffs on Tesla, make their cars more expensive, because they're doing that in the EU. They're being unfair to Chinese companies in the West. So China should also be unfair to Western automobile companies in China. So yeah, that's very interesting. But going forward, it's just so stupid to see EU lower tariffs for Tesla just because they're Tesla. And even though, they're producing the car Model 3 here in China, doesn't that steal jobs? Come on, think about it. So it's just very hypocritical. It's just the whole entire Western countries are very anti-NIO, anti-China in general. And I think after the war absolves itself and there's a peace treaty, everything's going to become much, much better. Because remember when NIO stock was at 20-ish when the war started, all right? When the war just started, it was like 20-ish. So hopefully, with this war going away, if it does go away, we'll see better premiums on NIO stock and better valuations, okay? As always, stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out.